Hello, and welcome back to Spud Space Agency. So, after last time of finishing off the tech tree, I thought it would be a good idea to bring the Kerbols that are currently trapped on the Mun and Midmus home because we don't need the science anymore. Today's video is a little bit different because it's basically just going to be me showing off my failure. So, to give a little bit of backstory, the thing that I thought would be a really cool way to collect the Kerbols was I wanted to make an SSTO that could go to Minmus and then go over to the Mun and then bring people home. I thought, what fun way, not necessarily an SSTO, but some form of vehicle to travel between the two. And I thought, how funny would it be to make a bus? So I basically made something like this. I was doing a little bit of testing because I thought it's going to be a bit more difficult than usual, so I'll make sure that things work beforehand. So what I did is I stuck two of these cabins on. I grabbed some of these thud engines. I then shoved on some nuclear engines on, shoved some wheels on like that. And I thought, oh, cool. This should mostly work. I kind of had a quick glance at these, so I kind of attempted to have that so that they were about equal so that it could take off Vtol style. And so I had this and I thought, yeah, this should work, right? I was like, excellent, there we go, Vtol, this works. And then it started to all go a little bit crazy. And I'll be honest, this is actually flying way better than the first attempt that I did actually flew. Probably because I've now built several of these in an attempt. But either way, it didn't really work. So I thought maybe the issue with this craft is probably just because of the atmosphere that this is so weird. Let's try and turn it into a space plane, because my initial plan was just to shove this on a rocket and fly it up. But I thought, how cool would it be to then make like a big VTOL space plane to take people? And I kind of went a little bit overboard with adding on wings and stuff, and I ended up with this. And so as you can see, I kind of went a little bit crazy. I did actually install another mod, which is called RCS Build Aid. And what that does is it shows the dry and wet center of mass. So basically, the little red dot is the center of mass when the craft is empty of fuel, and the yellow one is where it's full of fuel. And basically, for a VTOL, you want those to match up so that you've always got that vertical takeoff and landing capability. So I shoved loads of Rapier engines on it. Loads of these fuel tanks are in weird positions just to sort of balance out the fuel. I added on some Werner engines, so I had a bit more stability. I also then added some Aerospike engines in the bottom for the VTOL aspect instead of the radial ones. I'll be honest, I don't know why I went with the Aerospikes, because they're not the best engines. I kind of just picked them and went with it. I probably could have picked better ones, but oh well. I then spent an absolute age tweaking this craft to try and get it to work. And so the first sort of attempts of this craft were awful, to be honest. I didn't have enough thrust, I didn't have enough lifting surface, it just didn't work at all, basically. And so I spent a very long time tweaking this, which is partly why I haven't made a video sooner, because I've just spent so long sorting these crafts out, trying to make them work. So as you can see, I'm taking off normal space lane style, because this can't lift VTOL style on Kerbin. It has to do that sort of on the Mun. And as you can see, it's still quite temperamental. But it can take off, and you'll notice we are not going very quickly at all. If you've seen my previous space plane, which, you know, to this date is still the first and only other space plane than this that I actually successfully made, we need to be going at about 400 meters a second before we can start building enough speed with these things, and we are not approaching that in the slightest. So this thing, first of all, failure, it's huge. It's ridiculous. I don't know why I decided, oh yeah, I need to pick up 10 Kerbols. I want 40 Kerbols worth of space on here, because each one of these cabins can fit 16 people in. And then I've got another 4 cabin space in there. You'll notice though that we're not actually flying this with any Kerbols. One, that's because if it fails I don't kill anybody, because I am still playing this on the career mode save. But also, I then did do a test on a sandbox game to see if this can fly with Kerbols in it, and it can't. It absolutely will not fly at a high enough speed with Kerbols in it. So that kind of defeats the whole object of what this was trying to do anyway. I'll be honest, I am quite proud, considering this is literally the second space plane I ever made, and it's huge. And, spoilers, but it can just about get to space. It's got a ridiculous amount of fuel, which helps, but it can reach orbit out of its own accord. But from the future here, this thing just never built up enough speed. I try cancelling this launch, restarting it and trying again, and I can't get this thing to fly again. And then I try it once again without recording, and lo and behold, cutting back now. Okay, so, I just launched this thing again without recording, and within 3 minutes, bear in mind we were flying that last one for like 20 minutes of in-game time, we've hit enough speed to take off. Whether because my computer was running so badly, it just meant we couldn't have enough fuel. The only other thing that I did to change it slightly was I drained a little bit of fuel before takeoff, but I think the main problem was the fact that my computer just couldn't. I don't know. It's weird. But either way, this is now picking up enough speed. Cool, so now they're at about 20,000 meters. Turn on the nuclear engines, just gain a bit more thrust. Cool. So, as you can see, this thing can in fact make orbit. So, problem number 1 of this craft though, it uses almost all of its fuel to take off. I know I drained some at the start, but I think it's too heavy with the amount of fuel it starts with. So it normally does actually take me a lot longer to get up to speed, I think because I've got to burn off fuel first. So, again, what I thought was, oh, not a problem, I'll just send up a refueling ship and dock with that and refuel mid-flight. It's an extra step, but it means I can still use a cool craft like this. So to simulate that, I'm just going to use HyperEdit to essentially refuel the ship, and then we will head over to the Mun. Now, another problem with crafts like this, especially with having leftover fuel, is that my Delta V readouts are entirely wrong. This thing is very slow because I'm on the nuclear engines, so I'm gonna try and burn this out. It weighs a lot, and so therefore takes forever to do anything. Oh, it is pitch black. Oh, because we're in an eclipse. And so now we get to problem 2 of this thing, which is that with these nuclear engines, it takes a very long time to slow down an orbit. But what we can do is if we then turn off our nuclear engines, turn on our 4 aerospike engines, and then at the back here I have got a probe core, which allows me to sort of control the ship from the direction it's moving Vtol wise, which just really helps with landing. But there we go. So this thing can land on the Mun, Vtol, which is cool. This craft may not be particularly great, but I'm quite proud of it, considering that I've not made many I've not really made any space planes, and I've not done a Vtol before trying to do these. It's pretty cool, aside from the fact that it's supposed to transport Kerbals and can't take the weight when the Kerbals are on. Come to think of it, having the Kerbals on board does slow down my computer. And so I am wondering if the issue was actually more to do with the fact that my computer couldn't run with the Kerbals on board. But the main problem we will see shortly. But either way, let's just show this thing being able to take off in a VTOL style. I'll be honest, this is one of the coolest things, seeing this thing just fly up straight. I love it. I absolutely love VTOL style craft. And what we can do is build up some speed, control from there, point prograde, turn off the VTOL engines, and turn on the nuclear engines. Since we aren't going up anywhere near as much as I'd want, we can just activate these a little bit since we've got some extra fuel. Now, the main problem with this craft is trying to get it back to Kerbin is near impossible. Not as a space plane anyway. Now, to be fair, I did forget to put any form of aero brakes on this thing. Oh. And here comes our problem. This thing just really likes to go backwards. So as soon as we start getting into the atmosphere, I just cannot control this thing at all. Our engines are freaking out because we keep pointing the right way, gaining air control, and then not. And then if I could point forward, I could regain some form of control, but I just cannot regain any control of this thing. Maybe if I'd have started pointing prograde earlier on, I might have been able to regain some control, but unfortunately this thing just cannot. Well, hey, all the Kerbals on board would have survived, actually, which is quite nice. But that was the problem with this. So all in all, I am quite proud of this thing. I probably will revisit it, because I do think it is a pretty cool design. But for the time being, I thought, well, the problems of re-entry is a pretty big one, and not being able to take off with Kerbals. So I thought I'd make one a bit more reasonable. And so I made this thing, which has got 16 seats. It's got essentially a third of the amount of seats as the other one, but it's a lot smaller. Showcase it a little bit. So in here, we've just got probe core control, and then in this back bay, we've got two, I think. Oh no, just the one aerospike engine, because it can't VTOL on Kerbin, but it can over on Minmus and the Mun. And for all what I thought, with the center of mass and the center of lift where it is, and just everything I know about building planes in this game, this thing should have just been better in every way than the other one. So let's give this one a go. And so this one is nice. It can actually take off on the runway before, like, you know, having to deal with a drop-off at the end. So it can take off of its own accord properly. We're building speed a lot quicker than the other one. There we go. We've already hit that 440-ish threshold, so we can rapidly start increasing our speed now. I'm going to now try and tilt up slightly, and this thing's just wobbling all over the place trying to tilt up. Like, when I try to press to tilt up, it moves down just as much. And I'll be honest, I think, though, actually, the opposite of last time, this is actually better than any of the other launches I tried when I first made this. This thing was incredibly difficult to control previously. I think I maybe tried tilting it a bit too much whilst flying, but it would just flip over everywhere. So this is actually the best flight I've had with this one, which is ironic. Well, what do you know? I don't think I managed to get this thing into orbit previously. Well, we might as well try and get this one over to the moon and see. And then, again, we'll see how this thing attempts to land VTOL style. Just noticed, however, our fuel levels are low. So although we could get over to the Mun without refueling, this thing still doesn't have enough fuel, which, you know, when I kind of realized that I didn't have enough fuel to get over and land, it was then kind of a, why not use the bigger craft? Because if I'm going to have to refuel it midway anyway, why not use the cool, massive one instead, you know? And also this thing isn't quite as powerful with the only one sort of aerospike engine. And we're out of fuel again. So I tried this several times to make it land with enough fuel, but the nuclear engines just slow it down so slowly. I couldn't get it to slow down quick enough to the point where I could then just use the fuel of these. So unfortunately this one is just pretty much mostly a failure, because we're also coming in very quickly for what I'd want. Yeah. So cool design. I could probably tweak it to work, but with how well it performed, if I was a design I was going to tweak to make it work, it was going to be the big one, because it's just cooler to have a massive space plane if I'm going to have to refuel it halfway through sort of thing, and it just landed better than this one did. And so I finally decided to combine my efforts and go back to the original idea of a space bus. So we've got loads of wheels on this thing. There is a vector engine, so really powerful engine for takeoff and landing, as well as these two to keep balance, and then vector engines on the back here as well. So I'm only going to quickly show this one off because I think this is going to be the craft that I use, because I kind of just love this thing. It's ridiculous and it's wonderful for that. And the coolest thing about this one is that it can VTOL on Kerbin. We have a big flying bus. It can seat 32 Kerbols. It cannot get to atmosphere of its own accord. Like, this thing is... There's no need for it to be able to VTOL on Kerbin, other than I wanted it to be able to VTOL on Kerbin, because it's just cool. I wanted a big flying bus. But anyway, I have done a lot more testing on this one as well. My main goals with this thing is to get a drill system installed so that I can land on Minmus, fully refuel, then head over to the Mun, then head to Kerbin. That, to me, would be the coolest thing. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Bye. Wah! Meant to do that.